a box to the emergency room. And then the security guard that gave my box away, he came back and asked me like, oh, you want to go meet them? And I was like, what? Yeah, I was like, what'd you say? Me? Meet who? Yeah, I don't know. And then we wait through the doors of the emergency department. So there's like, you know, people with the scrubs and the white, yeah. And then they were just like asking me questions like, wow, you made this? Yeah, where is it? What floor? And I'm like, no, it's like really small, like just me, like pick up to the lobby. They're like, where? And like Newport. And they're, oh, that's so close, blah, blah, blah. So there's like 5 or 6 of them behind the desk and like the picture of the menu and everything. Yeah, it was really fun. Okay, that's the update.
Welcome to episode 3 of starting a home bakery with a full-time job. In this video, I'm gonna tell you exactly how much I made in the last 4 months, what went well, what I learned, and how I'm planning to improve. This is actually the first video I'm filming since I started getting views on episode 1, and I just wanna say thank you to everyone who's liked that video, commented, and also subscribed to my channel. Thank you so much for your support. It makes me feel so happy and inspired to see so many people with the same dream as me, and also seeing that some of you actually are just starting your home bakery just like I am. So I will do my best to make more videos on the topics you want to see, and let's get into it. So it's been 4 months since I started my home bakery. I did my first sale at the end of April this year, and now it's the end of August. So in terms of what I did in the last 4 months, one major thing is that I sold every 2 to 3 weeks. So in total, I had 9 order dates. And then I also did 1 market event, and I had 2 large orders. So let's start with the total. So in terms of total revenue, I made $2,109. And then after that, I paid about 3.3% in transaction fees. So this includes like credit card transaction fee, there's like a transaction fee on Venmo, that kind of thing, which totaled to about $70 worth of transaction fees. And then my total cost of goods sold during this period was about $650. So that means that out of that total, like $2,109 of revenue, I actually got a gross profit of about 65.8%, which was $1,388, which sounds like a lot, but I do have a few call outs. So in terms of the COGS, the cost of goods sold, this estimate of $650 is definitely less than how much material and time I had actually spent. And that is because it doesn't include, number one, spending a lot of time to make like a very small batch, which I did very often. It also doesn't include the fact that when I make a batch, I don't sell like everything in it. And then it also doesn't account for mess ups. So the times where I underbaked an item and I had to redo it, I overbaked an item, I had to redo it. So I definitely remade stuff quite often. So the amount of time and materials to do that is not actually included in the COGS. And then I also have to factor in that I had a lot of other expenses. For example, some major ones are like the cost of the permit, general liability insurance, buying ingredients and packaging in bulk, and also buying additional baking equipment and photography equipment. So I did mention in my last video that I did put in just over $1,000 of my own money. So now you know if I made like $1,000 in gross profit, that I'm pretty much just barely breaking even right now. But let's break down that revenue so you have a better idea of like where that revenue actually came from. One major source of that revenue was the single market event that I did. That event was 3 hours long, and within that time range, I got 41 purchases and made a total of $487. Another big source of that income is the amount I made from large orders. So I did 2 large orders in the last 4 months, which totaled to $589. And finally, the remaining revenue came from the 9 order dates I did. So if you calculate the average of what I made over the 9 order dates, it would come out to about $110 per order date. But I do need to call out that that average is definitely skewed because on my launch day, I had a lot of my friends support me, and I still have a lot of friends supporting my home bakery. So I would say on an average order day, I definitely do not get $100 of sales. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're starting a home bakery. I feel like 100 is, to be honest, like kind of on the higher side. So now let's get to what went well. So the first thing that went well is that I sold at my first ever market event. So actually how I got this opportunity was that around when I initially launched my home bakery, I reached out to the email on my community's website and I asked them if they had any events or opportunities that I could participate in as a local vendor. And then about a month later, they actually did reach out to me and let me know about this like summer festival event that was gonna happen in the community in like the next month. So that's how I found that opportunity. And then that event was 3 hours long. It was actually from like 5 to 8 p.m. So it's not really like your typical farmer's market event. And I was able to actually sell most of the items that I had brought to that. Another thing that went well is that I have gotten quite a few repeat customers. So actually most of my customers that ordered on the first order date, they have ordered again, which is really nice. And then I also have gotten a few large orders, which honestly, I couldn't have predicted that at the beginning. So I'm so grateful for that. And then another thing that went well is that I have received a lot of positive feedback on my products. So actually about 2 weeks ago, I did bring samples to a work event, and that's where I kind of got feedback on my product outside of like my friends and my customers. And I got a lot of positive feedback on all the samples that I brought of various products. So I think that went really well and shows that my product is actually pretty solid. And then another thing that went well is actually getting views on long form YouTube videos, because I actually at one point started having people reach out to me to order because they saw my content on YouTube, which did not happen the first 3 months of running my bakery. Okay, so now let's move on to what I learned. So the first major thing I've learned since my last update is that long form videos actually do better on YouTube. So I mentioned before that I had actually started posting videos, specifically shorts, about a year before I actually officially started my home bakery. And at that time I had chosen to primarily put out shorts because when I was researching, I had heard from a few YouTube videos that shorts is the fastest way to grow on YouTube. So I had listened to that advice and I pretty much only put out short form videos on YouTube, and then I expanded to uploading that onto TikTok and Instagram as well. And then it's after I started posting home bakery specific content that the content on all the platforms started to do better. And then when that happened, Instagram and TikTok did noticeably better, but to be honest, on YouTube, those specific videos did do better than the others. However, the average views seem to plateau at about like 500 to 900 views per video. And honestly, that went on for like months. I think on YouTube, my content has kind of plateaued at that line of like 500 to 900 views for, yeah, maybe the last like 4 months, if I'm gonna be honest. It's been pretty consistent, unfortunately. And the thing is, when I had initially heard about how shorts is like the fastest way to grow your YouTube channel, they did specifically say that on YouTube, shorts get more views over time. And I think that's definitely probably true for some people, but in my personal experience, the views really just plateaued and they did not grow. Like throughout my like 1.5 years of uploading shorts on YouTube, I did notice that older videos definitely would not really grow more views over time in general. So when I posted episode 1 of this series, it also kind of plateaued after like the first day. But when I checked on it like a few weeks later, I think, you could see that it was obviously getting more views, and it continues to get more views to this day. And at this point, just that first episode has contributed to over like maybe 4 times as many subscribers as I had initially had prior to that video getting more views. So I would really recommend, if you're starting a home bakery, to focus more time on posting long form videos, specifically at least on YouTube. And then another thing I learned is that when you are marketing on Instagram, posting a reel will get way more views than posting a normal like post full of like pictures. So what I do now, and what I've also seen other home bakery creators on Instagram do, is you just try to post a reel for whatever content you want to make. So for me, like if I want to put out like a reminder post that there's only like 2 more days to order, then I would try to package that into a reel rather than just a normal static post. So that's what I would recommend as well. So that's been working well for me, and I've been trying to do that with my posts these days. And now another huge thing I learned these 4 months is about burnout. I would probably say I've been burnt out like 3 to 4 weeks in total. And that definitely comes from struggling to balance having like a full-time job and also running a home bakery and also trying to consistently produce video content to market my business as well. And what I find is those weeks when I'm just so packed with tasks, like literally from the moment I wake up to when I get off work to when I go to bed, I just have a full schedule, like no time to relax, no time to think about anything besides working on my to-do list. And I found that that has been pretty bad because when my schedule gets kind of tight, I start to cut out anything that's not necessary, which includes like taking care of myself and getting enough sleep. That kind of goes out the window, which really doesn't help with the burnout. But what I learned from that is that you just gotta practice planning out your weeks. So how I've implemented that is usually at the beginning of the week, I just list out all the tasks that I need to get done. For example, if I have a order that I need to complete by Saturday, then I'll have all the days of baking lined out, any tasks like designing things, applying for things, making videos. I put all of those tasks down that I need for the week. And then the trick is when you look at that list, if you just have no idea how is it even possible to complete that, the trick is to then try to estimate each task in terms of roughly how many hours I think it'll take, and then calculate roughly how many hours I do have of free time that week, and just gotta ruthlessly prioritize between them. Because at that point, you know that you only have a certain amount of hours, so you just gotta start thinking, okay, this is a must-do versus this is what I want to do, but honestly, I'm not going to be able to do it because of how many other things that are higher priority. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, I definitely had to push back an order date by a week because I just looked at my plan and there's no way I was gonna get through that in one piece. So that's something that I have learned and I have been continuing to implement. And then another thing I learned in terms of like the causes of burnout is to be more wary of the tasks that are higher risk. For example, recipe development tasks. There's basically no guarantee how many times you might need to remake a certain recipe, or if you remake it 3 times and you just decide this is not where it's at and you pivot and you have to do that again. So that's a risk with recipe development tasks. It's the fact that they're not bounded in terms of how much time they will take. And then another task I found to be really risky is tasks where I'm making a finicky recipe. So for example, for my ube cube pound cakes, I top them with a coconut ganache, but to get this really pretty drip, I have to make a ganache and I have to whip it to a certain consistency, and you can't go past that consistency, otherwise it will literally be like frosting and it won't drip. But if you go under that perfect consistency, it will be completely transparent and just drip all the way off the cakes. So that's a really finicky recipe because I don't actually have a solid way of knowing when I've whipped it enough. Yeah, sometimes it's not right and I just have to remake the coconut ganache. So yeah, try to stay away from finicky recipes if you can. And then another really important point that I learned about burnout is that honestly, you should expect to get burnt out sometimes. Really, it comes in waves. It just depends on like how many events you have pop up in addition to your like normal schedule, how many personal commitments you have. Sometimes you can't control it and you're just gonna make that mistake and take on more than you can handle. And I think that's okay, but I do think it helps to understand that this is something that happens and just try to learn from it. Okay, now let's move on to what can be improved. Something I have really been struggling with the last 4 months is growing my customer base. And I would say I've tried quite a few things. One thing I tried is getting into a farmer's market. At the start of the year, I had applied to one that looked really good, but I think I might have chosen one that was too competitive. So I did not get into that. I tried applying to some local night markets in my city, but I haven't been able to get into any of those yet. I also tried marketing within my building, giving out samples in the community, creating a Yelp business page, Nextdoor app, and posting on local Facebook groups. And at this point, I'm trying to do a challenge where I just try one new technique every order date for the next like 5 order dates. And that's been my way to try to keep growing my customer base. And another thing that I've been struggling with is the feeling of my business plateauing and feeling like I'm not getting closer to my goal of opening a brick and mortar. And with that, it's been kind of hard, but I've been trying to work on that by by trying to redirect some of my time towards the strategy part. So because I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from my customers on my products, I've decided it's probably better to refocus some of the time I spend on developing new recipes to thinking more about the strategy side and ways to grow my customer base. And yeah, that concludes my summary of 4 months of running my home bakery. As I mentioned before, I really appreciate your support, and I would love to know what type of videos you would like to see. And also, I would love to know if you have any tips for growing my customer base. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and like this type of content, and I will see you in the next one. See ya!